As we dug into the overall problem, our 6-month-long investigation found eye-opening reasons why streets are so bad.
5 on Your Side investigator Jonathan Walsh talks with a national expert about Cleveland's roads and exposes glaring problems with the city's street system.
When it comes to repairing streets, on the one hand, you have evaluating the roads. On the other, you have repaving and maintenance. Many viewers tell me the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing, and the whole fundamental strategy is a mess.
First thing I noticed was my wheel alignment.
Demetrius Smith told me he's had damage to his car after driving on his East Side street.
It's really a nice, fair roller coaster ride, you know, nothing really smooth sailing.
Same thing goes on Western Avenue on the west side of Cleveland.
It's like driving a car on a train track.
Leo Torres explained to me it's been like this since he moved there in 1999.
Every year actually gets worse. Every year the bumps get bigger.
If these guys don't qualify, who is getting the new roads? Well, I'm going to show you in just a moment. But first, let's take you all the way back to 2007 when the streets were so bad the city of Cleveland actually spent $470,000 to understand the condition of every road. Completed in 2009, the massive evaluation produced this list that rated 16,000 Cleveland streets from 1 to 100. The city talks about those streets with A through F grades. One problem? That list is still being used today as a baseline. Is that an effective strategy?
Generally speaking, you need to measure your pavement conditions or your bridge conditions every few years.
Here I am, 9 years after the grading started, talking to the founder of Michigan State University's National Center for Pavement Preservation.
There's an awful lot of roads that are in poor condition now.
I showed Larry Galehouse Cleveland's DNF streets. Now, he travels the country helping states, counties, and cities with their roads. And even after all of the bad streets he's seen nationwide, this is what he said about the worst streets in Cleveland.
Yeah, looking at this, it's pretty serious.
It's serious for your taxpayer money and safety. But also, we went out to these streets and found there's no consistency to the street ratings. Just take Zimmer Avenue, for example. It's a brick road, and it has a 100 rating. People who live there say,
not 100, I wouldn't give it a grade of that.
We found the same misstep for Arden around West 116th, rated 100.
I would give that like maybe 50.
My producer and I dug through incredible amounts of data related to the 2009 study. How many streets are A-rated roads like those two streets? Only 10% in the whole city. But a little more than 5,100 roads fall into the DNF categories.
That is a high percentage.
It's almost 33%. So how did we get here? Galehouse told me the single toughest challenge across the country is the old school government strategy of build a road and then build it again later.
We cannot afford to continue to build and use the worst first philosophy.
Everything we do is based on worst first.
That is Cleveland's chief operating officer, Darnell Brown. The worst first theme was repeated several times during my interview with him. Worst streets get first priority.
As we continue to go through this program, it will be evident that the worst streets are getting done.
What is evident is that city leaders are not very good at their own flawed mission. How do I know? Well, I added it up. Of the segments of roads that were repaved between 2009 when that list came out in 2015, 518 roads had an A, B, or C rating. Compare that to the D's and F's, 487. They did their mission so poorly that they kind of got it right in a backwards sort of way. They did the better roads more so than the worst roads.
The goal at the end of the day is to do all of the worst.
According to the city's plans, East 149th Street was one of the worst. Now it's pretty smooth. But who lives on that street? In 2009, when this study was finally released, this street had a D rating. There were 1,000 other streets with an F rating. So why did this street get done, your street? Meet Councilman Zach Reed.
The only thing I can tell you, at that particular time, we weren't doing rating systems. Other streets were done well before my street was done. But my street just happened to be part of 100. I can't say to the people of 149, because I live on the street, we're going to skip over your street. We haven't skipped over any street. We didn't do it in a willy-nilly, let's do Zach Reed's street. We did it in a systematic way.
Okay, so by now you may be wondering, what is that system? How does a street get paved in Cleveland? We got this email from the mayor's office. The strategy is, quote, objectively subjective. Think about it. Objectively subjective.
Have you heard that term before?
I have not.
Okay.
I've not heard
Because
that
it
term.
seemed that sounds confusing to me.
Brown wasn't aware of that, objectively subjective, so we pieced it together the best that we could. It's a system where the 2009 study produces a list of the streets that should be done. Then the city evaluates roads and comes up with its own list of worst streets in each ward. Then each council member comes up with his or her own list. Remember Leo? Here's his council rep, Donna Brady.
I turn in my own lists, which are totally different from the lists that I'm given because the lists I'm given don't make any sense.
So, what actually gets done? Well, here's Councilman Jeff Johnson driving on his street. It was repaved in 2011, despite segments of it having B and C ratings. Councilman TJ Dow's listed street was also repaved in 2011, a street that had a D rating, but remember, there are more than 1,000 other F streets on the 2009 list. Leo can only wish his street was repaved.
I mean, I want to stay here, but I mean, I like to live in the city where you can actually drive in the streets.
Meanwhile, Councilman Kevin Conwell's street was redone. Here he is driving on it. Our research shows between 2009 and 2015, only 1 in 16 streets has been resurfaced.
With so many streets bad, though, Councilman, you're one of the lucky ones.
Oh, I'm blessed. I advocated.
No,
here.
Your street was repaved back in 2011.
Right, my street was repaved. The residents got out there and they pushed for my street. I just live in a ward, so that's okay if my street was repaved.
It's not okay with Demetrius. You see, he told me he lives on East 112th, which is connected to Ashbury Avenue, which is Councilman Conwell's recently paved street.
When their street got done, our street should have got done.
Councilman Conwell pointed to the millions of dollars in street repairs he's addressed for his ward.
We're doing worse. We're ranking worse.
At the time when his street was redone, it had 8 segments that were given C grades. What happened to worst first?
So when do you evaluate your street and say, look, this has a bunch of C ratings. We might not need to do Ashbury. We need to do another street.
Well, you know what? We took a look at that, and then I went to, I walked the street like we're walking the streets right now, and you do an analysis.
The most recent analysis is the city upping its local resurfacing budget from $4.4 million to now $10 million. Councilman Conwell noted a project for this year.
And we get ready to spend $4.2 million to do East 105th Street.
So, investing more money in a system that appears to be flawed. Take, for example, the East 75th segment between Sherman Avenue and Quincy, part of the same project Councilman Conwell was just talking about. It's rated a C. No homes around it, just boarded up buildings. Sherman is right next to it. It has a D rating, but East 75th gets the attention.
How does something like that get on a repaving list?
Again, it's based on pavement condition rating.
And again, it's rated a C. Brown did tell me the city's working hard on its preservation program for crack sealing and adding rejuvenators on newer streets. It's a process Gale House explained needs to be done much more often.
Because if they don't address their better roads today, they're going to have even more than 33% in the D and F category.
We found one of those better roads that the city has taken care of, the Mayor's Street. That's right. Even with thousands of remaining D and F streets, Frank Jackson got a newly paved road in 2012. And get this, at the end of his street, more new roads. I asked for an interview, never got one. I was told the Mayor's Street was done according to the city's systematic approach.
The old business model is really outdated.
Would you like them to pay attention to your street?
Oh, yes, most definitely. Oh, yes, I would. Yes, help, please.
And get this, the city of Cleveland just spent $600,000 on a new study to grade our roads.
That master list should be out in September.
But will it be another cycle of Cleveland viewers asking me, what did we get for our money? And is it, here we go again? I'm investigator Jonathan Walsh, News Channel 5.
We have that
2009 complete list of 16,000 graded streets on our Newsnet 5 app.
I know you want to see it. It's an interactive display that will let you check out what grade your street has. Then we want you to tell us what you think, and we'll follow up.
It's a job that he was selected to do, to make sure Cleveland streets are paved and passable.
But in response to our investigation into the city's streets and their quality, the chairman of the committee that is supposed to check over street conditions acknowledges that at times he hasn't.
Can you see where some people would be upset about that? They haven't had their streets done, and then they see the councilman.
Yes, I would see where some people would be upset about it.
The comment comes after our 5 on Your Side investigators found some council members and the mayor had freshly paved roads when so many others are in terrible shape.
And 5 on Your Side investigator Jonathan Walsh joins us now live. And Jonathan, you talked with Councilman Ken Johnson about his role as chairman of this committee.
Yeah, and I asked him questions like, how did we get to this point with so many bad roads? What about that 2009 study that got way down into the streets and graded the condition of them? And what about streets of some of our city officials? Does it make sense to have 4 or 5 city leaders with their streets done while you have thousands of others in DNFs?
Let me explain how that actually happens.
Chairman Ken Johnson told me some councilmen had money stored up for streets before a recent rule said they have to spend their street budgets in the same year. He said they had to spend the money, and that's why their streets were done.
But they're choosing to spend it on their streets rather than some of their constituents' streets.
Well, that I don't know. I mean, I have no idea because I don't keep up with that.
Is that something as the chairman maybe you should keep up with?
I don't think so because they're elected just like I am. And if they think that their street is worse than any other, who am I to judge that?
Again, he's the chairman. He also told me there's a new system to understand utility needs prior to paving. He said they haven't had that before.
You do a street, but then they have to come back and redo it a year later, 2 years later?
Yes, and that has happened to me several times.
So, for as long as the city has been paving streets and had indoor plumbing, plans for utility work ahead of time weren't known?
We didn't have that before?
No.
Johnson told me with the new street pavement condition study that comes out next month, he will sit down, go over it, and go out into the streets to inspect the accuracy.
That sitting down and looking at the list and going around and checking it, that never happened with the original 2009 study?
No. That never happened.
I also asked him that we've been paving roads in the city of Cleveland for decades, and here we are in 2016 with these kinds of issues. His answer, yep.
We begin tonight at 11 with an exclusive News 5 investigation. Our On Your Side investigators uncovered errors in a crucial report evaluating Cleveland roads, a report that cost the city $600,000 as part of our year-long investigation into fundamental problems with maintaining and repairing city streets. Investigator Jonathan Walsh learned why the report is still being worked on.
It's a report that should have been in our hands months ago. But it's not. In fact, we were denied so many times I had to confront the mayor. And believe it or not, the problems all boiled down to a mistake on some tablets.
Mayor Jackson, hi. Jonathan Walsh from News 5. I asked directly. We're wanting to know why you're not releasing the road survey done by Baker International.
If you're entitled to it, you should have it.
Well, why aren't we getting it then? Is this something you know about?
No, I don't know anything about why you're not getting it.
The mayor promised to get me answers. So finally, the very next day, I got them.
I would never accept that product. First of all, it just has no value.
Cleveland's Chief Operating Officer Darnell Brown told me the engineering firm Michael Baker International initially did not use the correct program for rating roads.
Was this discussed prior to them going out and doing this study?
Well, they're subject matter experts. So my expectation would be because you're the subject matter expert, you should know which model you should use.
An assumption that didn't work out. We have asked Baker International for interviews several times. No response. Matt Sprons is Mayor Jackson's Director of Capital Projects.
So when they did their first assessment, they weren't picking up those last 4 or 5 distresses in the pavement model. because they were using the wrong app. They downloaded the wrong app onto their iPads.
So now the project is months behind. It's a tool that the city has said is critical for planning projects and coordinating funds through regional, state, and federal levels. Do we as taxpayers get our money back because of the delay?
At this point in time, I don't know that the city's been harmed. At this point, we're harmed if we get to a point where we don't have a product.
However, I found an additional error. This email confirms that a prior Baker International report labeled as final was not accurate either, that the city still had to accept the work being done.
My last conversation with them was, you need to get a lot of urgency about getting this product completed.
Chief Brown told me that study is about 75% complete, and the new deadline for its release is the end of January. We'll stay on top of it and see if that happens. I'm On Your Side investigator Jonathan Walsh.
We're talking about roadways in and around the city. You've driven on them. You know, some are pretty darn rough.
Very rough. And over the past year, News 5 investigators have been digging into Cleveland's road repaving system and finding flaws.
Today, Mayor Jackson touted the city's resurfacing plans, but when we asked tough questions about it, we got no answers.
On Your Side investigator Jonathan Walsh joins us live right now. So, Jonathan, the mayor says 83 residential streets will be resurfaced this year.
Yeah, and this is one of them, East 102nd. You can see behind me, this is the one that has been put on the list, the very first one for this year. But I got to tell you, we are finding new issues and still trying to get answers on problems that News 5 investigators uncovered. This year, 95 streets total, 83 of them residential, will be resurfaced and repaired. Mayor Jackson and Public Works Director Michael Cox told us the worst streets will get attention.
In every ward, you may have a certain number of F streets.
So the F streets will be done.
F streets are what we intend to do in each ward. Yes.
Because in the past we have shown that that's not the case.
Well, in the past, as I said, when there was a different process, you're right.
The current pavement management study has problems too. Our report in February showed several examples of ridiculous ratings. This street is a 100. Mayor Jackson told us that we haven't done enough.
These were the first ones we even came across. We didn't even search.
Well, maybe you should search a little bit more, and you might find more, and then you can give it to me, and then I'll handle it.
I have given them to your press folks.
We'll follow up on it.
But I haven't heard back. This has been now a month or two now that this.
Now, anybody else got questions in regards to this?
He wants News 5 to find more problems with the city's approved study? Well, then Mayor Jackson told us this.
If you notice things, we're trying to do this and do it right. We appreciate it if you give us information, and then we'll follow up on it.
We have been in constant contact with your press office and relaying some of the concerns that our viewers have. So it's not a matter of us not getting a hold of you. Actually, we're waiting to hear a response from the city to a number of the issues that we've brought up.
Okay. Well, thank you for that, too.
And still, no response to our questions on that report. A finalized list of all the streets that are supposed to be done for this season, that should be out in about 10 days. We'll stay on top of it. Reporting live here on the East Side, I'm investigator Jonathan Walsh for The Now.
Your Side starts now. For the past year, we've been warning you about Cleveland's broken roads and the people living on them, failed by a broken system.
It's like we're trying to recreate the wheel, and the wheel's getting broken on streets like this.
After the city's last road report, we learned good roads were getting repaved, while rough roads were left to waste away.
Now Cleveland is trying again.
I expect it to be a lot different than before.
More D's and F's getting done than A, B's, and C's.
Yes, that's right.
But we've already found a lot of problems with the new roads report. And yet...
So you're not disappointed with some of the mistakes that Baker has presented?
No, sir. No, sir. On Your Side investigators have been holding Cleveland city leaders accountable for that fundamentally flawed road repair system.
And today we press them for even more answers tonight after a big announcement by the city. On Your Side investigator Jonathan Walsh joins us live tonight. And Jonathan, East 102nd is the first residential street on that list.
Yeah, it's the first one out of dozens scheduled for 2017. We don't have a finalized list. We won't see that until next Friday, we're told by the city. But we are still trying to get answers to basic problems that we have uncovered about the way these streets were graded in the first place.
Those streets that we have chosen to do this year are rated F. That's a pavement condition rating.
Public Works Director Michael Cox is talking about the most recent report from Michael Baker International that graded Cleveland streets. He told me the city put together a list of streets for repaving based on that report and what city crews saw driving the roads. The streets in the running for resurfacing, how do they compare to the suggested streets that Baker International gave you?
There may be a little difference. There may be some.
And why is that?
Heaven only knows. The machine.
Heaven only knows. You are charged with that.
The machine picks up what they pick up. What I do know that is nothing better than an on-site, and we do that.
We have found problems with that so-called machine and what it picked up or didn't pick up for that matter. In February, we showed you several questionable perfect 100 rated streets by Baker International, like Wayne Court.
That street, as I found out, was not even looked at.
So, a company the city paid with your taxpayer money, a total of $600,000 to grade all the streets, did not look at the street, but still gave it a 100.
We have refined what they've done, which is a natural thing to do. So we are working on all the F streets.
Is it natural to put 100 down when you didn't even look at it, though?
Well, that was explained to us that they put the 100 down. We knew it was an alley. We knew we had to go back out. It was what they did. Is I will get more explanation for it. But that street, when I saw that street on your broadcast, it's not a street that we would do.
You as a taxpayer have to decide if that's all right with you.
So you're not disappointed with some of the mistakes that Baker has presented?
No, sir. No, sir.
Starts now.
For more than a year, our investigators have been keeping an eye on Cleveland's broken roads. Hundreds of thousands of dollars spent just to help them figure out which ones should be fixed first.
But we found the system they're using to pick out their priorities is just as broken as the roads we drive on. And the mayor got a little defensive about it.
Maybe you should search a little bit more and you might find more, and then you can give it to me and then I'll handle it.
So, our investigators did just that. More than $600,000 was spent just to create what the city calls a guide to fixing the worst of the worst. In February, we debunked that guide, and when we confronted Mayor Frank Jackson about it, that's when he challenged us to find those discrepancies.
So, on your side, investigator Jonathan Walsh accepted the mayor's challenge, and wait until you see what he found.
When starting out on the mayor's challenge, we once again looked at all the streets rated 100 from the pavement management study. And once again, on the first stop we made, we found this problem. Does this look like a 100 rated street to you?
This is the beginning of Scranton Road to Carter Road, a perfect section of street according to the pavement management study that was released just months ago. But we found cracks, rough patches, and areas nowhere near perfect.
This is the second street we looked into. Now, mind you, we are randomly choosing streets rated 100. We have no idea what we're going to find. But we found this. They rated it a perfect 100.
They rated the condition of the road?
Yeah.
No, that's an egregious statement to make.
We interviewed Amy Bednar on the so-called perfectly rated section of street of Scranton from Fairfield to Train. Look at all these bumps, bruises, and cracks throughout. Amy had a message for Mayor Jackson.
The mayor can actually be my passenger. We could take a trip down Scranton Road and see what it's like to have to dodge the potholes over here.
The next street was Roxborough. We found it has overlapping grades. From West 146 to Warren, it's a C. But then the study gives it a grade of 100 from Warren all the way to Warren, 20 feet worth of road. That sounds familiar. Oh yeah, from our first report debunking the study.
Tyler Avenue gets a 100 rating from West 130th all the way to West 130th.
And finally, the 4th and 5th streets we checked out, Rodman from Rugby to Coit and from Rugby to Earlwood. That is newly paved, but neighbors told me they don't understand it.
I don't really like it though. I still don't like it.
It's an alley with few homes on it. More traveled roads that cross that alley, like Earlwood, right next to the paving, is bad. Rugby with many homes, feet away from Rodman, is worse. And look at Coit. Drivers say that is a disaster.
Dodging holes here, holes there. And eventually it's going to be a bad accident because somebody trying to dodge the holes.
So keep your eyes on News 5. We will be finding more examples of questionable ratings and letting the mayor know about them. I'm On Your Side investigator Jonathan Walsh.
Well, we contacted the mayor's office and once again let reps know about the errors we found and how quickly we found them. We are still waiting for a response. If you want to know how your street ranks in the city study, head to our News 5 app. You can also tell us how you would rank it, and we'll check it out.
Cleveland's mayor is slowly rolling out the list of streets that will be repaved this summer. Our On Your Side investigation has shown big discrepancies with what the city is doing at a recent roads report that grades the condition of the streets. Once again, our On Your Side investigator Jonathan Walsh finds the problems and gets quite a reaction from the people in their neighborhoods.
West 54th near Franklin is Nathan Rutz's street. It has problems, lots of them.
Well, for a while we thought about, my girlfriend and I were going to take pictures of ourselves in the potholes.
He wanted to know if his street is getting repaved. Well, not anytime soon. Mayor Frank Jackson just released the next 6 streets ready for repaving. One is West 57th from Bridge to Lorraine. Very rough, so many issues throughout. It gets a D grade in the city's new $600,000 study of our streets.
We're still on West 57th, this time from Detroit to Franklin. The study gives this section a D. Now, there are some cracks, but does this really look like the last section of road we showed you, which was also graded a D? The city of Cleveland says this is one of the worst streets here. What do you think about that?
Oh, no, that's a lie.
Daryl Strouder can't understand why this section of West 57th is getting repaved when there are plenty of other streets in this neighborhood that...
You're going to bump your car, your rim's going to bust or something, you know what I'm saying? So,
would you do that on this street?
No, this is the best street. I don't see what's wrong with it.
Just last month, Mayor Jackson told me the city had a plan for repaving.
F streets are what we intend to do in each ward.
But of the 6 newly announced streets, only 2 are graded F. One street, West 80th from Franklin to Detroit, isn't even in the report. And Rutledge between 74th and 76th is a D. It's getting repaved, much to the surprise of Dominique Howard, who's lived on Rutledge 5 years.
Not this one. This shouldn't worry about this one yet. This should be one of the last streets. Yeah, we have no issue, not even in the wintertime. This street is fine.
Meanwhile, just a few blocks away, West 50th from Lorraine to the end of the street is an actual F. No plans to repave it.
It's sad, actually.
Estrus Vega lives on West 50th that has long lines of potholes, a huge dip, and a ton of problems. No plans for his stretch of West 50th to get paved either.
Let's get it done. Let's get these streets done, the ones that really do need it.
Well, it seems like they have a big problem with their grading system.
I'm On Your Side investigator Jonathan Walsh.